Warner Bros. Buried a Joss Whedon Wonder Woman movie in 2005, fully scripted, fully paid for, fully greenlit to the next stage, and it would have put Diana Prince on screen a full decade before Wonder Woman finally reached theaters. It wouldn't have just been good. It would have changed the entire shape of the DC universe as we know it. And the reason it died is something no studio ever wanted you to hear. Because this isn't really a story about one script dying in a drawer. It's about a contract structure buried in the fine print of almost every studio deal in Hollywood, one built to let executives kill a project without ever officially saying no. New screenwriters walk into it blind, every single time. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly how it works and why it's still happening today. Here's how it started. In 2005, Warner Bros. Wanted a Wonder Woman film badly. Joel Silver, the producer behind The Matrix, pushed hard to bring in Joss Whedon fresh off Buffy and Firefly, a writer who understood strong female leads better than almost anyone in the industry. Whedon signed on to write and direct. The trade press called it a dream match. Whedon himself said he'd been circling the character his whole career, that he finally had a way to make her work on screen. Warner Bros. Didn't hand him a blank check and a release date. They handed him a step deal, the standard structure where a writer is paid to complete one stage of the script, and only after the studio approves that stage does the contract move him to the next one and the next paycheck. This part is real, and it's documented. Whedon delivered a treatment. Warner Bros. Approved it and paid out the first step. He moved to a full draft, turning in a script by early 2006, a war goddess origin story, Diana leaving the Messira to stop a threat on man's world soil, tonally darker and more political than anything DC had put on screen. Sources close to the production pegged the deal in the high six figures, standard for an A-list writer-director at that level. The script existed. People at the studio read it. For a moment, Wonder Woman was real, and it was Whedon's. Then the complications started stacking up. Warner Bros. Was mid-shuffle on its entire DC slate. Superman Returns had underperformed. Executives were nervous about origin stories, and budget conversations kept circling back to Whedon's vision being too expensive, too dark, too far from the tentpole formula the studio wanted. Behind the scenes, notes started coming back not as collaboration, but as containment. The relationship between Whedon and the studio cooled fast. By early 2007, he walked or was walked out, depending on which insider you ask. Here's the part they never explained. Warner Bros. Didn't need to cancel Wonder Woman. They just needed to not exercise the next step. That's the trap. In a step deal, silence is a decision. The studio isn't obligated to explain why a script isn't moving forward, isn't obligated to justify it to the press, isn't even obligated to tell the writer directly. They simply decline to authorize the next stage, and the project quietly stops existing in any legal sense, while the studio retains the rights to everything already written. Whedon's script didn't get rejected. It got frozen, owned, and shelved, and Warner Bros. Was free to hand Wonder Woman to someone else years later with zero contractual mess to clean up. The real reason it died wasn't that the script was bad. Multiple people who read it called it strong. It died because a step deal let executives avoid ever having to defend that opinion out loud, because internally, the fight was about tone, about a female-led superhero film being seen as a bigger financial risk than a male-led one, and about a producer's creative control colliding with a studio's cold feet. None of that had to be said. The contract said it for them. Think about what that cost. Wonder Woman didn't reach theaters until 2017, 12 years after Whedon signed on, and by then an entirely different filmmaker, an entirely different tone, an entirely different cultural moment. An earlier, Whedon-shaped Wonder Woman might have repositioned DC's entire film strategy a decade sooner, ahead of Marvel's rise instead of scrambling to catch up to it. We lost a version of the DC universe we'll never get to see, and we lost it to a paperwork mechanism, not a creative failure. So here's the question worth sitting with. How many scripts are frozen in that same silence right now, fully written, fully paid for, quietly owned by a studio that will never say why they stopped and which one gets buried next.